There's nothing I've ever wanted more in this Congress than for Jim Jordan to be the Speaker of the House. He is the fighter that we need for our country. And what they're doing right now is walking the Republicans off the plank. We don't deserve the majority if we go along with a plan to give the Democrats control over the House of Representatives. It's a giant betrayal to our Republican voters.
You know, that's Representative Jim Banks of Indiana putting in his 2 cents back in October when they were fighting over the latest Speaker of the House before Mike Johnson got it. He is a died and true supporter of Jim Jordan, which tells you pretty much all you need to know about a guy like that. You know, this is one of those cases where I had a hard time picking a video to open the interview with because Jim Banks has provided such a plethora of crazy. He's a far-right MAGA extremist. But this one caught my eye based on what's going on these days. He is the Senate nominee in Indiana, and he recently did a radio interview a little bit near the end of the year last year, and this is what he said when they discussed abortion access.
A young lady can hop in a car in Fort Wayne, and in an hour and a half, she can be in a place in Michigan, or in just under 3 hours, she could cross the line into Illinois and achieve what she was able to do with abortion clinics here in Indiana. The fight is far from over.
That's exactly right. And I'm for federal legislation. I'm for stronger laws at the state levels. Whatever we can do to save lives, to protect babies. That's what this fight is all about.
Right. He wants to stop the interstate travel of women who are pregnant to be able to go to Illinois or Michigan to get abortions. And he's promising a national abortion ban and restriction on interstate travel when he becomes a senator. So literally, this is one of those cases where abortion is really on the ballot in Indiana and everywhere. If we give the Republicans the Senate, there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever they will go for a national abortion ban. And of course, Trump wins the election. Folks, it's going to happen. But here's the thing. He's got a really unique opponent this time, a first-time candidate running for office. That's Dr. Valerie McCray. She's a licensed clinical psychologist, not your typical candidate. And now she's the Democratic nominee taking on Jim Banks in a tough state. I was really eager to get in the hot seat because of her unique background. So that's what we're going to do. I am Fred Wellman, host of On Demand with FP Wellman, right here in the MeidasTouch Network. And this is In the Hot Seat with Dr. Valerie McCray. Valerie, thank you for joining the MeidasTouch. Welcome to the network. It's so good to meet you.
All right, so good to meet you as well. I've been waiting to meet someone with your background and some of the things you've been doing for a while, especially the Lincoln Project. That was pretty cool.
Thanks a lot. It was a high adventure, let me tell you.
That was way cool. Yes.
Well, you know, you're a licensed clinical psychologist, and you're the first African-American woman nominee for U.S. Senate in Indiana history. So, but my big question is, what the hell drove you to run for Senate?
You know, actually, I worked in prisons. When I first started this, when I first sort of got the idea, said I have to do this, I was working in a prison. And a lot of things was happening. Trump was in office. I had some LGBTQ clients that were having a hard time in prison. And it was, you know, they were basically females in a male situation, just put it that way.
Yeah.
And Trump came out with a no transgender people in the military. And the whole prison, I've done so much work towards getting them what they wanted, what they needed for hormone treatments or whatever, or just being able to be called by, not necessarily by a pronoun, but quit calling them sir when they don't feel like a sir, that sort of thing. So I remember Trump when he came out with that no transgender people in the military. I remember the whole atmosphere changed, and I saw how much power comes from Washington as far as changing people's attitudes in a negative or a positive way. And it's like, you know what, we need someone that's a psychologist that can actually help mitigate some of that. Not to mention the fact that when you're surrounded by people that have really hit the rock bottom, you can see where they got there, whether it's poverty issues, whether it's medical issues or drug issues. You could see how they got there, or mental health issues, because that was my job when I was there, was to manage mostly the mentally ill. Yeah. You could see how they got there. And my thought was, why do I keep doing this one crisis at a time? What if I just went to Washington and tried to make sure that the policies that are coming down made more sense to the people at the bottom, I mean, to the everyday people, so that we have less people incarcerated and stuck for the rest of their lives, or the best parts of their lives, behind barbed wire fences, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, that's
That's
a
how it
unique place to
started.
come from. That's a unique place to come from, and it matters. It's a great place to start. And and and
Absolutely.
and and you obviously, I know mental health is a major part of your campaign, right? Mental health care as a mental health care professional, and what we're facing as a nation. I mean, starting there, since that's your job, where do you see your role as a senator trying to make it better, improve that for Americans?
You know, it's about putting a different lens on everything. We've got tons of attorneys, we've got tons of business people in Washington. We have some teachers there. Elizabeth Warren was a teacher, and there's a few more that were teachers. But to put a mental health lens on things, to sort of say, what's our well being? What is the quality of life? There's people deciding financial things and other things, but what about the quality of life? The things that make us who we are and make us happy and thrive, that's been lost. That pursuit of happiness seems to be only for the people at the top, but there's no passing down of that right to pursue happiness and to be content and balanced anywhere below that top 10% of people that are controlling things. So mental health, there's a way to put a mental health lens on everything. I mean, from the environment, how that affects us emotionally, from
Yeah.
the wages, how that affects us emotionally, how medical care and things that are so expensive, how that affects us emotionally, how the different wars and things affects us emotionally. And keep in mind that I do PTSD or trauma evaluations for the military as well. So I didn't just hang out in the prisons, but I actually do real life, other outside of that life work as well. And just knowing the ramifications of war and what that looks like in the long run, those things, getting that eye in Washington saying, no, this is what this is going to cost us for real. It's one thing to talk about cost of lives, but when the families are connected to this, and for generations, sometimes when dad comes home and he's had these experiences, or mom comes home and they have these experiences, it affects their whole family system.
Yep.
So those things, let's put a mental health lens on these decisions we're making. That was my
That's
goal.
I love it. I'm as a veteran myself. I call it the long tail of war. Those of us who serve take it home with us, and it does have a long term effect. And that does go to pulling that thread more. We do still face a healthcare access crisis in this country. Even with the Affordable Care Act, millions of Americans face a lack of insurance. Astronomical bills. Astronomical bills. As I was getting ready for this, I looked it up. Healthcare is still the leading cause of bankruptcy. 66% of all American bankruptcies are because of medical debt. I mean, what can be done to get better? Because is it Medicare for all? Is it access for all?
We have the foundation with Medicare for all, and how
Yeah.
to build on that, how to expand it for everyone, and also how to improve it at the same time. We are surrounded by Canada, and there's other countries that are doing this. It's not like we have to start from scratch. There's other
Right.
countries around the world that are not only giving medical care for everyone or having medical care for all of their citizens, but they're actually doing a better healthcare system. Even though we're spending way more money than any other groups, any other nations, we're spending a lot more money, but we have the lowest, one of the lower uh, life expectancy rates. It's not giving us better care by any stretch of the imagination. If we went to a medical care for all model, it would be cheaper and less expensive emotionally. It would be less taxing. It would cost less. It would give us better care. Doctors could be in the practice of doctoring
Yeah.
instead of in a healing, instead of the practice of trying to meet the qualifications of the different insurance companies and all those things
Yeah.
in between that goes with that. And there's a lot of fraud, and there's a lot of this, and it's just a mess. We can
Yeah.
solve that. As someone who sees clients myself, it's just a headache. It's just a
Yeah.
headache dealing with insurance companies. I stopped a long time ago collecting insurance. I said, listen, I'd rather you pay me half of what I normally charge, if that's what you can afford, than for me to have to spend all this time billing and them refusing to pay it. And it's just a mess. Just let's settle on a cash amount and let's be done with this. But doctors can't do that on a big, I have a small clientele, but doctors, they're sick of it too. They just want to be, the good doctors just want to heal. They don't want to be stuck in these conversations or hire extra people just to handle the billing process.
Yeah,
So
and that makes absolute sense. You know, in the opening clip, the opening clip of before you joined me, I caught Jim Banks on a radio show talking about how women in Indiana, Indiana has one of the strictest abortion laws in the country, but they were lamenting, he and the host were lamenting that young women can get in a car and drive 3 hours to Illinois, and basically promised a national abortion ban. He's virulently anti-choice. I mean, the fight for women's health care is real in this election, and especially in your race against someone who's all but promising a national abortion ban. I mean, does that drive you? I mean, what's your perspective on that?
it not only drives me, it catapults me. It sort of it does. Uh, we have to fight, and I love being the potential leader of that because I'm relentless when it comes to that particular issue. This is an issue that has to be fought with gloves off, and let's just get this handled. The fact that they are pulling away our rights to make decisions, and not to mention the fact this is a system of that they're talking about medical privacy. We're
Yeah.
losing our ability to be able to control our medical records and who's looking in and whether or not someone's traveling outside the state to get an abortion or not. That should not be your concern, and you shouldn't even know about it because you shouldn't be in our records anyway.
Yeah.
There's so many things connected to women's rights. It's about their career. It's about their health care. It's about domestic violence. It's about being stuck in situations that you can't get out of because of these situations. There's also a lot of medical issues. Women are still dying in childbirth. And you think
Yeah.
about myself, I'm an African American woman, and it's 3 times the rate for African American women. So this is personal for me to make sure that women's health care, first, we need to resolve the fact that we need better health care coverage, but then we have to make sure that that includes the right to choose when, where, and how we're going to have children. We have a right to do that. And the fact that we have 10-year-olds that we're having to fight to make sure they get the health care they need. The fact that we have women that are already told that their pregnancies are not viable, having to carry this to term. Women that are physically not able to carry that child, and things are happening and their bodies are being torn apart and they are on the edge of death before they actually can get that type of care. It is just insane that we're at this point. Absolutely, this is absolutely insanity. And then to chase people across to figure out what their records are, them going to get
Yeah.
transportation to Illinois or something, please.
Yeah. I
That
mean,
makes,
it's
yeah.
scary. And interstate travel is such a key portion of our Constitution, why we even have it, So it is terrifying when you talk about restricting that and databases. So I can see why you're saying that. As I was preparing for our conversation, I love you have a comment in there saying, you want to fight for breathable wages.
Yeah.
It really caught my eye. I love the framing of that. Tell me what that means to you, fighting for breathable wages for average Americans.
Yeah, that's a phrase that I coined or made because the fact of the matter is we're all on this rat race. And
Yeah.
at the end of a week, we get that paycheck, and most people get a paycheck and it's gone before we get it. It's already gone somewhere else. And most of us don't have a lot of people aren't making money enough to have that chance where, okay, everything is paid. This is paid. The kids, I have money, a little bit of money saved. This is going on. The car is okay. I don't need tires this week. I don't need this week. But guess what? Oh my goodness, we can just breathe a little bit. We're
Yeah.
not panicked about the bills for the next month. It's about being able to breathe and being able to not be up to here. People are making the same wages gosh, I made the same wages that people are fighting for now when I was 18 years old working at the factory. It was a summer job, but I was making $13 an hour. That was, I don't want to tell you how long ago that
A
was,
lot of
but it was
money.
a long,
Yeah.
long time ago. Back when my Chevy, I was trying to pay off my Chevy Monza.
I remember those.
Remember that car? I had a brand new Chevy Monza, and I had made enough money to almost pay cash for that, except I was left with a $78 car payment for 1 year. But that Chevy Monza was only about $4,000, and I could barely afford that on
Yeah.
that $13 an hour. So now, fast forward 40 some odd years, and people are still fighting to get $15 an hour
Yeah.
when everything has went up so astronomically, and it just doesn't make sense. A burger is like $10. It's
Yeah.
like, oh
300%
my gosh,
inflation
how
is
did we
insane.
get
Yeah.
there? Yeah,
Wow.
how did we get there?
I love it. Well, I think the most important question we ask in these short interviews, that one that matters the most to our Mighty who watch the show, how can we help you? Where can we find out more information about your race? You've got a tough fight. It's a red state against a MAGA extremist. How can our viewers and listeners follow you and find you?
ValerieMcCray.org or ValerieMcCray.com. It's Valerie with an E, so it's ValerieMcCray.org.com. There's another one, McCrayUSSenate.com. There's a lot of ways to reach me, but hey, join us. Push that donate button though, because it is not fun running a campaign the way we had to
No.
run it. It's grassroots. We were all grassroots, but grassroots also means, unfortunately, it also could mean that you're running kind of broke. And I don't want to do that again. We beat our
Right.
opponent. We knocked him out the water. But it was stressful. And now we've got this it's going to be one of these David and Goliath type things. So I'll just call myself Davia or Davida and Goliath.
I love it.
But I have full confidence that we're going to be able to knock this guy out of the water, because he does and says things that are just so extreme. He's just playing to Trump. It feels like he's just playing to Trump and not for the people at all. So that's okay. We'll let him do him. We've got a lot to offer here. We just need people to support the campaign. We need people to have little parties. Get the word out. Have little conversations. Collect a little money that you can and send it our way if you can. That's what's going to get this campaign started. If you've got deep pockets, then dig deep in them, of course, and send them our way. But push that donate button on that website.
All right. We'll urge them to do it. Well, Dr. McCray, thanks for joining me here in the MeidasTouch. Thanks for talking to us. I'm so excited for you. Congratulations on your nomination. And man, Jim Banks, get after him. We're proud to have you in the fight, man.
Hey, I got this. We got this. With your help, we got it. We got it.
I love it. Well, great talking to you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Right, take care.
Man, another great conversation with another great candidate. I love this series of interviews, the In the Hot Seat interviews. If you haven't seen them, I think we're up to a dozen or more now. Incredible candidates from around the country. Ones you've heard of, ones you may not have. Dr. Valerie McCray has taken on Jim Banks in Indiana. Really hard race. Obviously, as you know, Indiana is a pretty red state. So if you can give her support, I appreciate it. We'll be doing a lot more of these interviews. You wouldn't believe the list of folks I've got lined up I'll be talking to. In the meantime, catch our show every week, Friday night at 11 Eastern on Democracy with FP Wellman. Always have great conversations. This week's even better. So make sure you tune in. I am Fred Wellman. Thanks for joining me here on the MeidasTouch Network.